Live.
This is the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board meeting. It is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025 at 3 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blyle. Fasella.
Present.
Friedman.
Here.
Nudo. Ula. Barnes.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move to the public hearing, but seeing none here, we'll be moving on to the public hearing, even though we don't have members of the public present. The primary purpose of this hearing is to receive input from the public on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and appropriation ordinance for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District for the period from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Beginning on May 23rd, 2025, copies of the tentative budget were made available for public inspection on the district's website, mtt.org, under Public Hearings Documents. The notice of public hearing appeared in the News Gazette on May 23rd, 2025, and the affidavit of publication is available for inspection. If there are no comments, I declare this public hearing on MTD's budget and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2026 is closed. Next on the agenda is audience participation, and again, there's no one here in the audience, so we'll be moving on to the next agenda item. Is there a motion to approve the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board meeting minutes from May 28th, 2025, open session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to communication. Are there any communications from the board? Hearing none, we'll go to the Managing Director's report. Carl?
I'll start over. I sort of took all the air out of my joke. I'll just move on. Happy heat wave. Hope you're enjoying your summer. I know you are, Phil, because you work outdoors. Trustee Friedman asked me how the heat was affecting our operations, and so far, fortunately, not at all. Everything's been going pretty smoothly. We've got a lot of hot people out there, and sometimes that can cause tempers to flare, but we haven't had an uptick in any incidences as of yet, so that's good. I will move on to, I'll move on for my stand-up routine, and I'll get on to the statistics for May. We are approaching the end of the fiscal year, so we'll be reporting on May, and then we've got June that we'll report on next month and close out the fiscal year. But in May, our total ridership reached 774,235, and that is a 35.2% increase compared to last May. More significantly than that, it's a 20% increase over May of 2019, which was the last pre-pandemic May. So that's great. Our year-to-date ridership is 20.13% higher than the year-to-date last fiscal year, so a good indicator. I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction. I don't like to make predictions, but I'm going to make a risky one. First, I'll tell you our 2019 total ridership, fiscal year 2019 total ridership, so that was the last complete fiscal year prior to the pandemic, was 11.6 million. rides. And I am predicting that we will have 11.45 million rides at the end of this fiscal year. So give me a little give or take on that, but I think that we're going to be so close, nipping at the heels of our pre-pandemic ridership. So that's really great news. It is a clear indicator of a lot of hard work from our safety and training department, our HR department, getting us back to full employment so we can do full service, and the community is responding. So that's great. Our next chart here that you see is our May ridership since 2019, every May since 2019, and you can see how we were stair-stepping and starting to plateau a little bit when we were at 80% of our service level, but then when we hit our 100% service level, we've just shot back up, so that's great news. George, did you have a question?
Not exactly. I just wanted to underscore something. I can remember when, in my first term on the board, when Bill Volk called me up one day and said, "We've hit 1 million riders." We have come a long way.
We have indeed come a long way. I don't know what year that was, but if it was just hitting 1 million rides, that was a long time ago. But you and Bill were here. You have been here for a long time, so that makes sense. All right, moving on to, if I can see here, moving on to our operating revenue. The operating revenue was, for the month of May, was 0.1% below May of 2024, but the year-to-date operating revenue was 0.1% above this point in fiscal year 2024. The operating expenses, May 2025 operating expenses were 9.9% above May of last year, and the year-to-date operating expenses were 6.6% above FY 2024. And, just as a reminder, we were at 80% service level, and now we're at 100% service level, so that makes up most of that difference. The year-to-date revenue and expenses, we are $2 million above budget for revenue, and we are $3.7 million below budget for expenses. So that is good news. And I know Dick is challenging me to make this a record-breaking short meeting, so with that, I will answer any questions that you have through page 35. Otherwise, we can move on. George.
Yeah, on page 36, I noticed that down under C at the bottom, half-fare cab 0. Do we no longer have a half-fare cab program?
That is effectively true, not because we did anything to cancel the program, but the cab industry has, it's on life support, I guess, but there are no local cabs who are willing to participate in the program, and quite frankly, none right now that we would want to be participating in the program that we're aware of anyway. So the program has died sort of a natural death, and so we've stopped budgeting for it because we have no activity. It essentially has gone away just because of the state of the cab industry.
Interesting. Another question on page 39, I believe it is. Yeah. Under Illinois Terminal, I don't see the wages for the director of Illinois Terminal. Where does that appear in the budget?
Sorry, can you say that again? You don't see the wage for who?
Whoever is the director of the Illinois Terminal operation.
Well, we are very fortunate. That's Josh Dom, and he works for free, so we don't pay him. No, that is Josh Dom. He's in overhead. Under Illinois terminal wages, there's and then line item 4 is overhead, and that includes the Illinois terminal director.
That's an,
And some other staff members. I don't want you to think that entire line item goes to his salary.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I was going to ask what, so the half-fare program, I guess, predates me, but what need did that fill, or what exactly were we talking about?
I think it was still limping along a little bit while you were on the board, but it was pretty anemic by the time you get on the board. But the referendum that was on the ballot in, correct me if I'm wrong, George, and I know you will, 1978, I believe. It was our second referendum, and it expanded the property tax levy authority, the rate for the district. And part of the process, oftentimes for a governmental entity going out for a referendum, they have an ask, but it's a give and take. And so there were a list of benefits that the district said, if we get this additional rate authority, we will offer these programs. And the half-fare cab program was one of those programs that was offered. So we've been doing it since 1978 and are willing to keep doing it. There's just we have no mechanism to do it any longer.
What exactly was the program?
Your microphone wasn't on, but I think I heard you say what exactly was the program. Yeah. It is not a very clever name because it actually, that's the program. MTD pays for half of the cab fare for eligible recipients. So it generally was senior citizens. So if you're 65 and older, you could participate. You could sign up and participate in this program. And then there were cab companies that participated in the program. And so you were a cab operator, and George is getting close to being a senior citizen at 65. He could sign up for the program, and he'd call you up for a ride, and say the fare in 1978 had to be for a trip within our MTD boundaries. If it was a $5 fare, then he would pay you $2.50, and then you would bill us $2.50, and we would pay you $2.50. So you'd get the full fare, but George, as a member of the program, would only pay half of the fare, and MTD would pay the other half.
Fascinating, thank you.
Anything else for Carl? Okay, thank you. Now we move on to action items. We will discuss Ordinance 2025-4, Adoption of Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year 2026. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion to approve Ordinance number 2025-4?
So moved.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Friedman,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to our next action item. We'll be discussing Resolution 2025-5, committing a local cost share to Load No Grant Program and Buses and Bus Facilities Grant Program. Is there any discussion on this topic?
If I may just briefly, as an intro, probably for Laura as much as anyone, since this is new for her, the Bus and Bus Facility Grant Program and the Low-No Grant Program are two grant programs that the Federal Transit Administration administers for transit agencies. And as we talked about in the last board meeting, we have a couple projects that we are applying for federal funds for through these programs. And this resolution that's in the board packet, it's a pretty vanilla kind of resolution. It doesn't get real specific about details, but the key aspect of it that the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, requires is for you as a body to pass a resolution saying if the federal government awards us a grant, funds, the grant program is eligible to spend, to pay for up to 80% of the project costs. And so the rest of that, the 20%, is a local share. And so this is, excuse me, this is the district passing a resolution by the board saying that we are committing the local funds necessary to complete the project. And so it's just a requirement of the grant application process.
Any further comments or discussion?
Move to approve the resolution.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Point of information, I believe there might be a slight typo at the top of the resolution on page 45. I think it's meant to say Federal Transit Administration, not Administrator. Is that
Good catch, Counselor. We'll get that corrected.
happy to be here?
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Blyle,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Friedman. Yes. Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our final action item is to consider the approval of the Developmental Services Center, DSC, agreement. Carl?
Yes, this is an annual agreement that we do. The Developmental Services Center is a local not-for-profit agency. And we contract with them to provide paratransit services, transportation services for their customers, for their clients. This is beneficial to all concerned because those clients get a much higher quality level of service than they would if we were doing the service because they know their own clients and individuals with disabilities. The one thing that you can say is consistent about individuals with disabilities is that they're all different. I mean, even people who share the same form of disability, the way it impacts their lives is going to be unique to them. And so DSC knows each of their individual clients and knows their situation and knows their needs and limitations, and so they can adapt to that and they can accommodate all of those needs. And so it works really well for that passenger base to have DSC do it. And of course it works really well for DSC because we pay them to do that service, and so they get a lot of their costs covered for that. And it works well for us because that's a segment of the population that we don't have to provide the service for. And so we can take the drivers and the limited number of drivers and the limited number of vehicles that we have and focus those on our non-DSC community individuals with individuals with disabilities.
Any further discussion or questions?
I have a question. So I noticed in here that it discusses the ridership usage report. Obviously, maybe that's something you've included in other packets, but I'm new, so what insights are you gleaning from that ridership report, and does that go into our overall ridership report?
It does, and let me direct you to, well, it's blended, but it is reflected. So if you look at any of the reports, so just as a for instance, if you go to page 15 and you look at under ridership, there's ADA riders, that's Americans with Disabilities Act riders. Those numbers include the riders that MTD directly provides. It includes the trips that DSC provides, and it also includes the trips that DRES with the University of Illinois, who is another agency that we contract with to do specialized services for their clientele, very similar to DSC. And so all three of those trip generators or trip providers, DSC, DRES, and MTD, are all reflected in the ADA riders.
Anything further? Okay, is there a motion to approve the Developmental Services Center DSC agreement?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Friedman,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next regular Board of Trustees meeting will be Wednesday, July 30th, 2025 at 3 p.m. at Illinois Terminal, 45 East University in Champaign. Do I hear a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.